name is Harold Goodman, and I'm a physician, and I also, in the 1990s, I met Michel Thomas, and I spent 10 years studying with him. And I'm the only person he ever taught his method to. And basically what's happened over the years is I've worked with that, I've developed that, and I'm the author of the Michel Thomas Mandarin Chinese course, which is a 3-part course starting from the very beginning and building up. And I love languages. I've been studying languages as a hobby. I'm 71 now, but since I was a very young boy, languages have been my hobby. And as you can see, I also like to read, and I describe myself as a lifelong learner. So this is continuation of my lifelong learning. And I also am going to mention that if anyone is interested, I have 2 websites, www.learnetarium.com, and I'll spell Learnetarium, LEARNETARIUM.com, like learn and like Learnetarium or planetarium, but this is a Learnetarium. And then I have a medical website where I also post some things that might be of interest to some people who are interested in health and healing, and that's drharoldgoodman.com, www.drharoldgoodman.com. And I love to continue with my language studies, as I'm Jewish, and as a young boy, I was born in New York City, and before I was 9 years old, I never knew anyone who wasn't Jewish. So even though I grew up in the United States, I didn't know anything really about non-Jewish people or non-Jewish culture except what I got in the American culture. For example, when we moved when I was 9 years old, we moved to New Jersey from New York. I met my very first non-Jewish friends and started having friends who were non-Jewish. And I didn't know what Christmas was. I didn't know what Easter was. I wasn't sure what happened with churches. I saw them, but I didn't know what they were. Just like some people would walk down the street and see a Buddhist temple or a mosque, for example, but they're not really sure. What do the people who go to the mosque think or believe? Well, I didn't know anything about these other things. We would have Christmas songs. America is a predominantly Christian country, so I would hear Christmas songs, and that's how I learned about Christianity, through the Christmas songs, because that was my only real cultural contact. And I also study other Jewish languages like Yiddish. I'm a Yiddishist, someone who loves Yiddish, and I have over 1,000 books in Yiddish, and I have spent quite a few years with that. My father and mother, especially my father, that was their native language. They were born in America, but my father, until he was 5 years old, could only speak Yiddish. Even though he was born in the state of Connecticut, he didn't know anyone who wasn't Jewish, and he didn't know anyone who spoke English as their native language. And I'm also an Esperantist, and Esperanto was also started by a Jewish man, and he wrote the very first grammar of Yiddish, and he knew Hebrew very well. So, and then there are a lot of other languages as well. But that's a bit about myself. And now let's go to Kirsten. Kirsten, you were talking before, and tell us some more about you.
Okay. My name is Kerstin Cable, and I live in the UK now. I've been living in the UK for 17 years, but originally I grew up in Germany. I'm from the Moselle Valley in Germany, and I look back now and I didn't realize that I was sort of kind of growing up multilingual, because I thought I was just a German speaker. but actually everyone in my village, I'm from the countryside, I'm from a winemaking family with agriculture, land, and everyone in my family speaks Moselfränkisch, which is a really strong dialect of German, closer to Luxembourgish. And they all speak Moselfränkisch to each other. It's how my grandparents spoke. It's how my mum and dad spoke. But when I went to school, they didn't speak it so much to me anymore, because we spoke Hochdeutsch, which is standard German. So I grew up with, I think, a subconscious awareness that there's different ways of communicating and different ways of expressing yourself. And maybe it gave me an interest in languages. I'm not sure where it comes from. I remember when I was like 8 years old, you know, you can sort of read, like reading the cereal packets. And the cereal packets would have, it's like on the side, they've got the ingredients in 5 languages, and you're there going, oh, wow, that must mean wheat in Italian or some, I don't know. And I never had a formal language lesson really until I was 10. When I started to learn English, got very obsessed with English and Britain, really wanted to move to England, living the dream now, living in England. And what I do now is I'm kind of living languages. So for a living, I do a lot of writing and talking about languages, language learning, and through various different projects and coaching programs. And for example, a community that I run together with Lindsay and one of our friends, and a conference that I run together with Lindsay and one of our friends. I help people learn languages, and not just through making language courses. I make a few here and there. I enjoy teaching German, but I do a lot of work around mindset, around study skills, around what it means to learn solo, getting yourself organized, understanding how vocab might stick or not stick in your memory, and dealing with the self-critical streak that a lot of learners have. So the encouragement side, the empowering side is what makes me really happy. And working in languages as personal development makes me very happy. My own languages at the moment are German and English, of course. I started learning French in secondary school and then took it to degree level and never really let it drop because it was so much work. I don't want to lose it. I have been learning Welsh for 5 years, so I'm a Welsh speaker now. And I've got a few languages that kind of also bumble along. So there's another 6: Italian, Spanish, Chinese. I've been learning Chinese for a year. Yeah, sort of dip in and out of lots of them, but those 4 are my core. That's me. Oh, I have to say my website, right?
Yes.
Okay, so my main website, where you can find out everything about me and also find my podcast, which is my labor of love. It's called The Fluent Show, and roughly comes out every week. And we talk about loving, living, and learning languages and interview cool people. And Lindsay and I very often do episodes together and connect with each other and talk as friends about languages and how our life goes and how languages show up in life. And all of that is at fluentlanguage.co.uk. So fluent language, all one word, .co.uk. That's
Great.
it.
Thank you. And Lindsay, tell us about you.
Okay, so hello, I'm Lindsay Williams, and I run Lindsay Does Languages, which is a website and community all about inspiring language learners to do better on their own and language teachers who want to start teaching online. And for me, languages, I've native English speaker. English was very much my life, you know, in terms of language. And then when I was about 8 or 9, I started going to French club in primary school. It was an extracurricular thing. And I kept going because you would get croissants and orange juice at the end of each term. We'd have a French breakfast. So that was reason enough. And I'm glad I did, because then when I was about 13 and it came to picking exam subjects for GCSEs, I wanted to do Spanish because Shakira was a thing at this point and had just released her first mostly English album, Laundry Service. And there were some Spanish songs on there. And I thought, well, if I've learned French at school, then surely Spanish, it's the same thing. I'm just using, you know, it's a different language, same skills. And I just wanted to do Spanish. And to do that, my school said, you've got to keep doing French. And so that's how I ended up with the kind of number and the interest in just the expanse of language and languages, you know, beyond just focusing on French, if that's what it would have been. So Yeah, and then since then, I did my degree in mostly French and Spanish, but with some other languages alongside that, Italian, German, and a year of Chinese, and then started sort of teaching myself languages whilst doing that as well, because it was sort of part-time distance learning. And then I was like learning how to learn through that as well. So I started to get in on my own, and very much interested in Guarani, which is a language spoken in Paraguay and surrounding areas in South America. So that's me, but somehow never learnt much Hebrew until now. So I'm excited for today.
Well, good. So what we're doing today basically is just talking. And since you guys know how to talk, and you've been doing it all your lives, and we've done some of it here today, that's all we're going to do. That's it, period, nothing else. So the Hebrew word for I is ani. So Kirsten, what's the Hebrew word for I?
Ani.
Ani. Ani. And Lindsay, how would you say I in Hebrew?
Ani.
Ani. Ani. It's very simple. Ani. Oh, I want to tell you one other little thing. Hebrew is older than all European languages, even older than ancient Greek, definitely older than Latin. Hebrew was over 3,000 years old. It was spoken up until the 1st or 2nd century in the Common Era. But for about 1,700 years now, it wasn't a spoken language. But it was in continuous use. The Jews were kicked out of Israel in the year 70 by the Romans. They were put into exile. And so they went into exile around 70 in the Common Era. About 7. And so even Jesus, for example, Jesus of Nazareth, he didn't speak Hebrew. But he knew Hebrew very well because he was a religious Jew. He prayed in Hebrew. He read the Torah in Hebrew. So Hebrew was used for liturgical or religious reasons the whole time. Oh, by the way, no note-taking. So thanks. Just a little reminder. There's no notes because, let me ask you a question, Kirsten. When you're having a conversation with your friends, say with Kirsten, say with Lindsay, are you taking notes most of the time?
You'd be surprised.
Okay, let's just make believe that you don't.
Yeah.
Okay? So Jesus knew Hebrew really well. We go from note-taking and sex to Jesus of Nazareth. So, why not? It's a very Jewish thing. See, this is the other thing. Jews have a sense of humor. It's one of the reasons why we've stuck around for so long, because we laugh. You know, you have the opportunity to cry when something bad happens, or you have the opportunity to laugh. So why not laugh? So we laugh. So Jesus knew Hebrew. He prayed in Hebrew every day. He went to the synagogue. The Torah, which is you guys call it the Old Testament, we call it the Torah. This is entirely in Hebrew. And because of the Masoretes, a group of Jews who wanted to continue the tradition, the Torah has been preserved for thousands of years in the identical text. It's called Biblical Hebrew. So Hebrew has gone through all of these permutations for over 3,000 years. There's Biblical Hebrew, post-Biblical Hebrew, then there's the Hebrew of the diaspora, which is after the Jews were kicked out in 70 AD by the Romans, and so forth. And so for all of this time, Hebrew was being used, but for 1,700 years, it wasn't used as a spoken language, but it was being used every single day. Jews pray 3 times a day facing Jerusalem. We have for all of these years. We always said, you know, we may have been kicked out, but we're going to go back. So we weren't allowed to go back because we were in exile. But we started going back, and we prayed towards Jerusalem 3 times a day for 2,000 years. We read the Torah every day in Hebrew. We said our prayers every day in Hebrew. They wrote texts in Hebrew. They wrote poetry in Hebrew, history in Hebrew, medical texts in Hebrew, scientific texts in Hebrew. The language was being used. And in the 19th century, there were some people called the Maskilim, Enlightenment people, the Erklärungs mentioned. And what happened is these people said, we want to start using Hebrew for more secular reasons. They started newspapers in Hebrew, writing novels in Hebrew, translating in Hebrew. I have a whole set of Sherlock Holmes in Hebrew here. And believe me, if you haven't read Sherlock Holmes till you've read it in Hebrew. And so this language has been in continuous use. But a language that's been in such long use for 3,000 years, it gets kind of complicated. There are all kinds of irregularities and this and that and everything else. So for modern Hebrew, the Hebrew that's spoken in Israel today, which is the latest permutation of Hebrew, it was streamlined. They took all the old vocabulary, and what they did was they made it so it could be used for modern use. I'll give you an example. In the book of Ezekiel, in the prophets, we have a word chashmal. And chashmal was indicating a kind of a light that was coming out. Chashmal is the modern Hebrew word for electricity. What they did was they took all of the old vocabulary and the vocabulary we're using today, and it's the original vocabulary. So a modern Israeli teenager can pick up the Torah, the Old Testament, and read it in the original Hebrew. It's all the same words, except we don't speak that way because that's biblical Hebrew. We speak modern Hebrew. So what we're learning here today is modern Hebrew. So Kirsten, what's the word for I in Hebrew?
Ani.
Ani. And Lindsay, what's the word for I?
Ani.
Ani. So there's another great word to learn, which is tov. Tov means good. And so if you want to say I good, how would you say I good, Lindsay?
Ani tov.
Ani tov. Ani tov. How would you say I'm good, Kirsten?
Ani tov.
Ani tov. So there's a really great word to learn, which is not, the word for no or not. Lo. Lo. Someone says, you want to do this and you don't want to, you say, lo. So how would you say no, Lindsay?
Low.
Low. How would you say no, Kerstin?
Low.
Low. So you can be down low and no. So low. So I not good, I no good. How would you say that, Lindsay?
Ani lo tov.
Ani lo tov. How would you say I'm not good? How would you say that? Kerstin.
Ani lo tov.
Ani lo tov. Ani lo tov. Well, maybe you'd want to say, I'm good. How would you say I'm good, Lindsay?
Ani tov.
Ani tov. Every language has words for here and there, and so does Hebrew. The word for here is kan. How would you say here, Kirsten?
Kan.
Kan. How would you say I here, Kirsten?
Ani kan.
Ani kan. How would you say I'm not good, Lindsay?
Ani lo tov.
Ani lo tov. And say you want to say I'm good, Kirsten, how would you say that?
Ani tov.
Ani tov. So Lindsay, how do you say I'm here?
Ani kan.
Ani kan. Now, you can have here and then you can have there. And there in Hebrew is sham, sham. So how would you say I there, Kerstin?
Ani sham.
Ani sham. How would you say, I'm here, Lindsay?
Ani can.
Ani kan. And how would you say, I'm good, Lindsay?
Ani tov.
Ani tov. Now, I'm going to teach you a great word, which is the word but, B-U-T in English. Aval, aval. How would you say but, Kirsten?
Aval.
Aval. And how would you, Lindsay, say but?
Aval.
Aval. So, Kirsten, how would you say, I here, but I not there?
Ani kan, aval ani lo sham.
Ani kan. Aval ani lo sham. Ani kan. So how would you say, I'm here, but I'm not there, Lindsay?
Ani can. Aval ani lo sham.
Ani kan. Aval ani lo sham. Now, you both told me you know the word shalom. So shalom has three meanings, actually. The word shalom means hello. It's also used for goodbye. And then, of course, it means peace. So it's used a lot in Hebrew. And you'll hear Israelis say, oh, shalom, shalom. You know, in French, they say, oh, bonjour, bonjour. It's the same thing in Hebrew. Shalom, shalom. Well, you can also inquire as to how someone is doing. How is your peace? Or if you prefer, how is your hello or goodbye? But let's say, how is your peace? That seems to be a little easier to deal with here when you're asking. So the word for what in Hebrew is ma, just like a mother, ma. So how would you say what, Kerstin?
Ma.
Ma. And Lindsay, how would you say what?
Ma.
Ma. So instead of saying ma shalom, in Hebrew, it sounds easier to say, especially since we're going to add something on to indicate whether we're asking a male or a female this question, because Hebrew is one of the languages, like many, many, many languages, that makes distinctions of gender, male and female. But the good news is there is no neuter. They restrict everything to male and female. They don't get involved in neuter. And there are no declensions in Hebrew. Hooray, no declensions.
Indeed.
There's all of these great things. And you may have noticed, how do you say I am good, Kirsten?
Ani tov.
Ani tov. Where is the word for I am? We're just saying I good.
Mm.
Where's the word for am? Or if we were going to say you're good, we would say you good. We don't have in the present tense, there is no word used in Hebrew for to be.
Mm.
Hey, what's not to like? Such a deal.
Tov.
Tov, tov. Exactly. Such a wonderful language. You don't have no declensions, and you don't have this and that. And in the present tense, we don't have to learn about to be, I am, you are, etc., and all that crap. It's simple. It's a very, very simple language, and it gets even simpler. But we'll get to that in a little bit from now. Okay. So if you want to say, how are you? And we're going to say, what is your shalom? We're going to say it for, let's do it for a male first. Ma shalom cha. The cha. Now this gets into a sound that we don't use much in English. If you are Scotch, am I allowed to say Scotch? Is that it? That's how
Yeah.
people from Scotland refer to themselves as
Scottish.
Yeah.
Scottish. Good. You see,
Scottish.
I'm an American. What do I know? So Scottish. You see, in America, Scotch is something we drink, but Scottish. So if you're Scottish, how would you say L-O-C-H?
Loch.
Loch. Loch. Oy. Loch. So I'm going to say something in Yiddish, even though we're not teaching Yiddish. Lochenkopf. A hole in the head. My
Yeah.
father, I would say something to him. I said, I need that like a Lochenkopf. I need that like a hole in the head. So it's loch, cha. That's the sound. Ma shlom cha. Ma shlom cha. Okay. Ma shlom cha is talking to a male, a man, a boy, and you're saying, how are you doing? Ma shlom cha. So Lindsay, how would you say to a guy, how are you doing?
Ma shalom cha.
Ma shlom cha. Perfect. Excellent. You may qualify for the Scottish sweepstakes. Your pronunciation is so good. You can tell people, oh, I love everything Scottish because I studied Hebrew. Ma shlom cha.
I am half Scottish, so it's
Well, there you go. I guess
must be in my blood.
Yeah, you know what? You know, it's natural for you. You got it in your blood. Ma shlom cha. So, what does ma shlom cha mean, Kirsten?
It's how are you?
How are you? How are you? Ma shlom cha. Very good. So notice what Hebrew does with shalom. It doesn't say ma shalom cha, it says ma shlom cha. Ma shlom cha. Ma shlom cha. What does that mean, Lindsay?
How are you to a male?
Great. Well, do you want to learn how to say it for a female? Because we do have the other half of the world to deal with.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the way you say it for a female is ma shlomech. Ma shlomech.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah. So Kirsten, how would you say you want to ask Lindsay how she's doing? What do you say?
Ma shlomech.
Ma shlomech. Hey, Lindsay, ma shlomech.
Ani tov.
Ani tov. Wow, you anticipated my next move. Jeez, you guys are hot. Okay. So, but maybe you don't want to say I'm good. Maybe you want to say I'm not good. How would you say that, Kerstin?
Ani lo tov.
Ani lo tov. Now, Lindsay, maybe you want to say I'm very good. How would the word for very in Hebrew is ma'od. So you say I good very. That's the way you say it in Hebrew. I good very.
Okay, so ani tov mahod.
Me'od.
Me'od.
M-E-O-D. Me'od.
Okay. Ani tov ma'od.
Ani tov ma'od. It's perfect. You said it perfectly. In fact, if I hear you on the telephone, I wouldn't know that you're half Scottish. Ani tov ma'od. Wow. Oh, I want to teach you two very, very ancient Hebrew words that are used every single day by Israelis. They say hi and bye.
The same?
Just like
Yeah,
that?
exactly the same way. So if you see someone in the street, you can say hi. And if you want to leave, you can say bye, bye.
And is there a difference between saying that or saying shalom?
Yeah, there is. This is what you get into. There are a lot of words where in the dictionary they're equivalent. But when you are with your friends, you're going to use certain words as opposed to other words.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to use certain words, for example, when you're talking to your parents, as opposed to talking to each other. You're going to use words when you're in the market that would be different than if you're talking to your kids or nephews or cousins or, you know, younger people. But you'll run into this later on. Every language has this, and Hebrew is no exception. So Kirsten, how would you say, I am very good?
Ani tov me'od.
Ani tov ma'od. And if you want to ask Lindsay, how's she doing? What would you say? Lindsay, what would you say?
Hi, Lindsay. Ma shlomech.
Ma shlomech. Ma shlomech. And Lindsay, how would you say, I am not good?
Ani lo tov.
Ani lo tov. Ani lo tov. Very good. Now we're going to go on just a little bit more. Let's see. The word for where in Hebrew is apho. Apho. How would you say, where I? How would you say where I, Kerstin?
Eifo ani.
Apho ani, where am I? You wake up, you know, you don't know where you are.
You've had the scotch.
You've had the Scotch. You haven't had the Scottish, you've had the Scotch, exactly. And you wake up and you say, and what do you say, Lindsay? Where am I?
Do.
Apho.
Apho ani. Apho ani.
Apho ani. And Kerstin, how would you say, where am I?
Eifo ani.
Right. And Lindsay, you wake up and you don't know where you are. What do you say?
Apho ani.
Apho ani. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm here where I belong. How would you say, I am here? Lindsay.
Ani kan.
Kan.
Han.
Kan.
Kan.
Ani kan. Very good. And how would you say, Lindsay, how would you say, I am good?
Ani tov.
And how would you say, I am here?
Ani kan.
Ani kan. And how would you say, I am there, Lindsay?
Ani sham.
Very good. Ani sham.
Sham.
So you know what? You can trust yourselves. Sometimes when I was with Michel Thomas, he would say something to me. You know, when I was with him, we would spend 5 hours, 6, 7, 8 hours straight through with no lunch, no bathroom break, nothing. And he never used any notes. It would just go on and on and on and on. And every once in a while, I would like, oh, what's the word? And I would look up like this, you know, look up, I'm going to take my class, I'd look like this. And he would say, you're not going to find it up there. So how would you say, where am I? How would you say that, Lindsay?
Efi ani.
Apho.
Apho ani.
Apho. Apho.
Apho.
Apho I. How would you say apho I?
Apho ani.
Apho ani. How would you say where? How would you say where I?
Apho ani.
Very good. How would you say, Kerstin, speaking to a man, how would you say, how are you?
Ma shlomcha.
Ma shlomcha. Now, a a great word to know in Hebrew is okay, okay. And the word for okay is beseder, beseder, beseder. Lindsay, how would you say okay in Hebrew?
Beseder.
Beseder. And Kerstin, how would you say okay in Hebrew?
Beseder.
Beseder. So say somebody asks you, Lindsay, how are you? What would they say?
To ask me, it would
Yes,
be
ask
Ma Shalom Mech.
Ma shlomech. And then you want to say, okay, I'm okay. How would you say okay?
Beseder.
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 Beseder with an S. Seder.
Beseder.
Beseder. Now, in the Jewish religion, we have a holiday called Passover. Passover is the holiday where the Jews who were in Egypt for 400 years as slaves left. They left Egypt after 400 years of slavery. And we have a time each year when we commemorate this. We have a special meal called the Seder, S-E-D-E-R. And it's exactly the same as Seder in Beseder. Be, by the way, means in. Beseder, in or at. Beseder means, and Seder means that something is in order. Beseder. Beseder means okay, but it means everything's in order, everything's okay, everything's the way it needs to be. Beseder. So when you hear about the Jewish Seder, which is pronounced a little differently, but it's the same root. And this is another very important thing. The Hebrew language is built on roots. Mm-hmm. The whole language can be traced back to 3, and in some cases 4, but about 98% 3-letter roots. Every single noun, every single verb, they all come from roots. And in the course, when I do the full course, I'll be introducing these things. The language is mathematically perfect. You know, I read a long time ago, and I believe it's true, that Sanskrit, which is another ancient language, is so perfect in the way that it's ordered. And what's the word for order, by the way, Kirsten?
Seder?
Seder. Perfect. Hey, you're hot. Seder. And how would you say in order? How would you say in order, Lindsay, or okay?
Beseder.
Beseder. So you know what? Sanskrit is beseder. It's in order. It's perfectly ordered. It's so perfectly ordered it could be used, they say, who they are, I don't know, but they say it could be used for a computer language. It's a mathematically perfect language, Sanskrit, as is ancient Hebrew. These ancient languages that go way, way, way back before people were holding polyglot conferences, these ancient languages have something incredible. They have something that they captured, and it's there. And we have this in Hebrew. We have this in Sanskrit. So how would you say, okay, Lindsay?
Beseder.
And Kerstin, someone asks you, Ma shlomech? And you say,
Ani tov.
You could say that, but how about if you wanted to, and by the way, I'm happy that you are tov, but how would you say, okay?
Ani beseder.
Okay, beseder. Or you could just say beseder. You could say any beseder, but most Israelis would just say beseder. That's the other thing about Israel and Israelis. They're laid back. So the language, a lot of Israeli Hebrew is very laid back. That's why you say hi, bye, cool, you know, beseder. Great. So I want to keep on teaching you guys forever, but we're going to stop here. And and that's it. Any questions? Any comments? Anything?
I was so into that. Yeah. And I loved. Sorry, go on, Kirsten.
Oh, just to say it, that was super interesting.
Yeah, you've learned a lot of Hebrew. And you didn't have to study it.
Yeah. How can we say thank you in Hebrew?
Toda.
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 Toda. Toda.
Toda, Harold.
You're very welcome. Alo davar. Don't mention it.